So this coming Sunday is the 25th anniversary of the Sbarro bombing. Do you find with time that it gets any easier for you and Frimmett and the rest of the family?
It's changed. It's not easier. It's certainly not easier, but it's changed in the way in which it's hard. Um, there's no getting away from the fact that the freshness of losing Malki is no longer with us. It's a grinding pain, but it's not fresh. And it's also, I'd say, more in Frimmett's case than in mine, been overtaken by losing, in tragic circumstances, our son-in-law, the husband of our second youngest daughter, who fell exactly 2 months into the war in Gaza, leaving our daughter with an 18-month-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter. So that has, in a very practical way, taken over from its life because there's a lot for us to do. We've also succeeded in persuading our daughter, Bessie, to move just a couple of doors down the street from us. And that makes it a lot easier for us to do the things that we want to do. But it's a constant presence. I know that if Frimmett was sitting here with me at the moment, and she's not because she has unusual hours, we have a very disabled child, and Frimmett is with our daughter until 4:30 or 5 every morning, so she sleeps later than I do. She would probably say um, that all the fight has been taken out of her. It's not exactly true because she still contributes wherever she can, and she certainly still writes. But a lot of the frontal stuff, sitting down and talking with journalists, or even worse, with I can barely get the words out, politicians, falls to me, and from it gives that a pass. Yes, it's harder. I mean, it's not easier. It's harder in some ways, and as I say, the sense of losing Malki, which is very real, just has lost its edge. I'd say, the memories are certainly there, but not the horror.
So this coming Sunday, will that just be another day of memory, or will it actually have some
Oh,
significance that it is the 25th
no,
anniversary?
right, right. So there are two significant dates, and one of them is today. Um, I don't know when this is going to be seen by people or heard by people, but um, today is Malki's Yahrzeit. So, as I do every morning, I go to the synagogue, but as I don't do every morning, I was the person who led the prayers, and then I was the one who provided some cookies and drinks, because that's the tradition in our minyan to remember people's the anniversary of their deaths. So today is filled with events. We've got many of our friends and the friends of Malki's best friend, Michal Raziel, all gathering as we do every year on this date, the 20th day of the month of Av, at the gravesites. The girls are buried side by side in the big cemetery at the entrance to Jerusalem. And between now and then, we have a lot to do, all of it focused on the memory. Sunday's going to be different. Sunday represents an entirely secular and therefore entirely justice-based day of anger and of resolve, of trying to get things done. That's not the mood of today. Today, it's really all about the sadness and the sense of loss and the wishes that what we went through in losing Malki uh, should pass over other people and should leave us alone as well. We haven't been successful in that. As I say, losing our son-in-law was a serious trauma and continues to be. But these are the things that people can do.
Right. You've mentioned justice a couple of times. This year is another anniversary. It's 15 years since Ahlam Tamimi was released as part of the Gilad Shalit deal. And I was just looking through my notes, and it's actually the last time I spoke to you was the 19th anniversary of the Sbarro bombing, and you were urging people to sign a petition
Petition.
to get Tamimi brought back to justice, as it were. And I know you've been pursuing that through through the American government. How has that progressed, if at all?
Well, the first thing is to explain why the American government. And I'll start with the simple and very painful observation that Israel doesn't care at all. I could really expand on that in a big way while reminding you and myself that I'm a Zionist and glad to be a Zionist and proud to be a Zionist and have all of my children and grandchildren living here, but it's been an embittering experience in many ways, which I won't go into here. Justice, if we get it, is only going to come through the United States. I went to Washington in 2012, right after the Shalit deal, which was what triggered the freedom of this unspeakable savage, Ahlam Tamimi, and succeeded in persuading, or at least reminding, the authorities at the Department of Justice and the FBI that there's an American law which had never been applied up until then, which says that they are entitled and obliged to go after a person like Tamimi who met the requirements of that particular US federal act law, and which turns her into a fugitive terrorist. That has not gone smoothly, although it's all moved in the right direction, just at a rate that can make you go crazy. When I left Washington, I was only there for 24 hours on that occasion. I came home and told Frimet that we're in for a hard few weeks because the people at the DOJ, Department of Justice, had said they won't be able to tell us anything until they can tell us everything. So I thought that meant, a few weeks. It was 5 years. The strangest part of it was that, in accordance with their procedures, someone there made the decision that the criminal complaint, which was signed off by a judge not long after I was in Washington, would be sealed. Sealed doesn't mean what people might think it means. It was simply kept a secret from anybody who needs to know, except for the real insiders. And it was a full 5 years before we had a delegation on very short notice announcing that it was coming from Washington to sit down with us. And would we please come to a certain hotel? And in that hotel, we and the only other family at the time of an American woman who was also murdered sat and heard, to our utter surprise, because no one prepared us for it, that charges had been in place at that point for 4 years. And efforts had been made at that time for 4 years to persuade the Jordanians to respect the treaty that they signed in 1995. No one went into any details at that stage because there weren't too many details, but we were given to understand that this was not going to be an easy haul, and that in telling us that the charges had been under seal all these years, they were really saying, we've done what we can and there isn't much more we can do. It's over to you now. And they really meant that. Within a week, less than a week, 6 days, the Jordanians put on a performance in their highest court. If you can imagine the High Court of Justice in Canberra in its Jordanian guise, hands down a ruling without any hearing, without much of a hearing, saying the very basis on which we're being asked to hand her over to the Americans, that is, the treaty that we made in 1995, actually it's invalid. They went into no explanation other than to say that it needed to be ratified in a specific way by the Parliament, and that never happened, and therefore the treaty was invalid, and therefore she can't be moved, and this is not an appealable decision, go away. That was pretty much the entire substance of what the Jordanian highest appellate court, the Court of Cassation, found. Now, I'll just quickly run ahead, Zeddy, and tell you that in the years that followed, we sued the State Department. And that didn't go easy either. It took several years, and the process only ended a matter of weeks ago. Details are not for this conversation. But in the course of suing them, we got documents that showed that this has all been a charade, that actually everyone knows that Jordan is obliged, complied with the treaty was in force, is in force, and if there is a problem with it, which is highly doubtful, the problem is entirely created by Jordan, fixable every day by Jordan, and hasn't been fixed for obvious reasons. So that process, which has been going on for years, is a big part of the heartache and the sheer anger that comes with trying to get justice. It's not, and this is an important point, and I know I'm rambling, but I just want to get this out before the moment passes. It's not that people in the United States, and I repeat, the United States is the only party that's interested in getting her to justice, say that we're wrong, or that she's right, or that she's innocent and she should stay free. Everyone says, and seems to be really serious about pretending to mean it, that this should really happen. And then they walk away and nothing happens. Nothing happens. And that's been the case now for years. So It's not as if it's a hopeless situation. On the contrary, there are positive developments, and I feel we're getting closer to it. And we've had very encouraging developments. But we haven't had the development that matters, which is that someone in Washington, in the name of the United States government, gets on a soapbox and says, Jordan is in violation of its treaty with the United States. Jordan gets billions of dollars every year from United States taxpayers. And then, without anyone hearing, this breaches federal law, because if they violate their treaty and they receive aid from American taxpayers, the aid stops. That's the law. I'm the only person, as far as I know, who's ever been saying that in public, but it's true. So there's lots of those strange moments where I know that everybody realizes that all the things that Fremont and I are saying are right and true and compelling and make for obligations, but they have other issues on their minds.
So, I mean, the focus is very much on the American government. You said before the Israeli
Only.
government doesn't care. Why does the Israeli government not care? And what about the Australian government?
Australian government has been useless, and that's not for lack of trying. And I'm not going to expand on this, only because if I did, it would take up the whole conversation. I don't want that to happen. The Israeli government is much more complicated. There, I've personally had meetings with people right up to the highest level, and I don't believe that. I think it's not smart for me to go into the details. I can only say that what people think they know about Israel's approach to this is basically wrong, and that the real issue, broadly speaking, I'm trying not to get too sensitive about this, the real issue is uh, we would rather have peaceful relations with His Majesty King Abdullah II of Jordan than to rock the boat, or words to that effect. These are my words, that's my formulation. In any event, Israel has clearly washed its hands and did so on the 18th of October 2011 when Tamimi walked free. No, the issue is only in the hands of the Americans, and only because the Americans made it their issue by issuing criminal charges against her in 2013 and then unsealing them in 2017.
In the past, when we've spoken, you've said about how Ahlam Tamimi is fated as a celebrity in Jordan. Is that still the case? Do you know, or am
I
I?
know a lot. Oh, yes. The only thing that's changed is that starting in 2016, her TV show stopped happening because that was when she was arrested very briefly, just overnight, pursuant to an Interpol red alert notice to the Jordanian police, who took her into custody, brought her in front of a magistrate, and then immediately released her. That TV show has not come back, but she makes appearances in the media. She writes what seem like serious analyses of political issues, and they get published. It's all very superficial. She's no intellectual. She's smooth, she's smart, and she has lots of friends in Jordan. You don't see them so much in the official Jordanian media now. You used to. Now you see her a great deal in the social media, and not in her own name, but other people. At least it looks like other people trumpeting her cause. So yes, she continues to be a malevolent, I would say carcinogenic, a tumorous presence inside Jordanian society. I don't understand Jordan's own logic for keeping her there, but they are. Her husband now lives in Qatar. He's been there since 2020. Her money sits in Qatar. That's being attacked by various lawyers. Why she isn't in Qatar, I don't know. But it'd be worse for us because at least in Jordan, Jordan has a treaty with the United States, so that at least the moral argument that I put has validity. I can say to the Americans, why aren't you arresting her? I can't say that to the Qataris.
Right. Now, I know you were asked about this earlier in the year when there was a bit of a debate about the phrase globalise the intifada. It's something that's come up a lot recently with the Royal Commission. I don't know if you've been following that at all, but
Sure
there's
I
a lot
have.
of discussion about whether that is anti-Semitic or not. And what does it mean to you when people actually try and justify the chant, globalise the intifada?
Well, when people try to justify the chant as opposed to uh, provoking people to express the chant, they're really just holding up a sign which says, I'm a total idiot. I have no comprehension at all of what this slogan is that I'm now blah, 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 blah. Globalized Intifada is a call to carry out acts of murder. Ahlam Tamimi can tell you that. People who pretend that it's not what it really is, let's really sit down and work this out because we want peace among nations. then they're being either idiots or are treating you like an idiot. I have nothing but contempt. My involvement in this is not extensive. I live in Israel, not in Australia, though I'm still an Australian citizen, very proud of Australia, but not of its political system. And when this idiot woman, who was Australian of the Year some years earlier, got up there at the Sydney Town Hall and was bellowing to the crowds out there, "Globalise the Intifada," she had no concept of what she was saying, except that it fit with who she saw herself as being. This is deeply worrying. People who chant "Globalise the Intifada" are really saying there is no basis for us to have respectful relations with people who identify with Israel. We want them dead. That's all that the Intifada means. It's all it ever meant. And globalizing it means we want it to be everywhere, in every corner of Australia, of Sydney, of Melbourne. Any Australian who is seeing it in a different way really ought to be called to account to explain how they get to whatever conclusion they get to, which doesn't involve saying, our lives are threatened by these lunatics.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I feel like the most naive person in the room whenever the issue comes up among friends of how can you be pursuing justice when everybody else clearly wants to preserve the relationship with King Abdullah. And it's moments like that that I say, are you serious? Do you know that Jordan has sky-high levels of anti-Semitism that are in fact rising? And instead of preparing the Jordanian people for peaceful relations and peace, His Royal Majesty is presiding over a government that is making it worse by the day. There is nothing that Jordan does that is a step towards better relations. And even people who want to argue with me about that have no answer when I say, and why has Israel just announced, it's already 6 months ago, spending $1.7 billion on fortifying the border with Jordan? And I've heard lots of arguments that say, no, the Jordanian border is the safest border we have, and the soldiers up and down the border from the north to the south, from the south to the north, all have guns and they're all pointed at their own people. And therefore, it doesn't come better than that. Why are you arguing with us, Mr. Roth? And this is stupid. We have real mortal life and death dangers on the Jordanian border, and it's a mistake to see it any differently. And the idea that we're keeping justice at bay because this will ensure that we'll have more of this kind of peaceful, ongoing neighborly relations is a total misreading of the map. Governments are there in order to protect their own people, and walking away from justice damns everybody who engages in it.